Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the lab. With you tonight is just going to be Lou and Brandon. Uh, Alex is on vacation, so we hope he's enjoying his time on Lucky Duck on a cruise. Uh, but you just gotta make do with the best, I guess.
Man, show must go on.
No, we hope you guys have enjoyed our last two episodes on prehab versus rehab, and then also the little discussion we had about the McGill Big Three with Dave and I. Today we're gonna have kind of a mixture of minds of strength conditioning and physical therapy. Especially kind of like we'll call this one the gray line episode. I kind of like that. Uh, because sometimes you're gonna get that athlete to the point where they're gonna be like just at the cusp of being discharged from physical therapy and just about to kind of go and like maintain independence with either the home exercise program or maybe going into the strength room with Brandon. So today the main topic we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about corrective exercise, right? The need for corrective exercise versus assessing programming pitfalls. Okay, so when I'm talking about corrective exercise, I'm basically talking about exercises that are supposed to be designed for addressing either movement imbalances, maybe postural corrections, although posture, man, don't get me started on that. Or maybe even just reducing an imbalance. And then in terms of like maybe like quadriceps versus hamstring. But then programming pitfalls more maybe along the lines of maybe when you put too much of an emphasis on a particular group of muscles, or maybe there's like an error in implementing a specific like repetition scheme. So maybe it's just an overload too soon, maybe even too much intensity too soon. Uh, so Brandon, I guess you and I have had, man, we've been working together now how many years?
Got to be pushing forward.
I say it feels like forever, but um, yeah, no. And I guess the time that we've had together, one of the best things that I think I've kind of know and I guess been spoiled on is having the open communication between you and I with the athletes that as they go from me to you, just the different modifications and changes that we've been able to do with like either exercises, which has been awesome, but also kind of making little adjustments and maybe additions to the program that you've already had set for them, especially after they've already come to see me. Um,
hmm
so I guess kind of diving right into it, corrective exercises, they have a place and they have a time, but when you guys have an athlete who is, they're complaining about that pain, they're complaining about having, just that discomfort during training, how do you guys go about implementing or maybe looking at maybe they're just not ready for a particular movement, or maybe it's just there is an imbalance. We do need to make a change with the corrective exercise. So I guess what do you guys look for? What do you guys kind of take into consideration when those kinds of things arise?
I always, so whatever the main lift is, I want to take that main lift and I'm going to just I'm going to reduce it to maybe the regression part of it. So if we're talking Bulgarian split squats, I might just go with the stationary split squat. Okay.
Mhm.
Does that feel better? Does it feel worse? Is it doable? Okay. So if it's Bulgarian split squat hurt, but the normal split squat, one of them days already.
It's been a day.
Doesn't affect it, then we're gonna take that regression and we're gonna build it up. So maybe you're not ready for that. So maybe the intensity of the start off level is too advanced. If a back squat hurts and a front squat doesn't hurt, or a Zercher squat doesn't hurt, we'll take the regression, kind of just adjust where the load is relative to the spine, the hip, the knee, wherever, the ankle, whatever the situation may be. Regress it down one, two, three, whatever it needs to be, whatever it needs to be, and then reevaluate and go from there. It doesn't have to be like, okay, we got to hit squat today. It doesn't have to be a back squat. It doesn't even have to be a bilateral squat. It can be a skater squat. It can be, if you got the right now I have a swimmer at state right now, but she's always has done her block starts with her right leg up, and her right leg is just so much stronger than her left. It's uncrazy. Like she'll go into a squat and then she'll get about a quarter of the way down and she is shifting so hard to that right side just because she's just so used to that. So like we don't even do bilateral squats anymore just because how just the deficit is between the right and left. So I always just take if whatever the main movement is, if it's not working, we're gonna regress it one, two, three steps down, figure out which one suits it best, and then we'll go from there and build it back up.
No, I like that. I like that. So I've always had like for like utilizing corrective exercise, I've always had like 4 different criteria that I kind of look like, or like indicators that I like to use. So one is like persistent discomfort or pain during or after exercise, a limited range of motion, maybe like you were just saying, a mobility or like a strength imbalance, an asymmetrical movement pattern when it's not a necessity or it's not like, um, I get like, for example, when you have like that person who's always putting that leg forward, is it a severe detriment for her to um, have that asymmetry because she's always had that leg forward? If she's a multi-sport athlete, probably, which she probably is. So that's also like something to kind of consider. Is it asymmetrical movement pattern or imbalance? And then also, is there any other like previous history that maybe has influenced the movement pattern, like maybe an Achilles tear or an ACL rupture, like things of that nature? Um, I like what you've been doing though, like actually utilizing the unilateral movements to build that left side up though, which is probably a good thing. Um,
It doesn't matter what sport you're playing. I mean, not you're never just always on 2 feet. So like I'll do if I'm like trying to do like a max force output, then okay, I will do a bilateral deadlift, squat, whatever it may be. But after that, everything we do is single leg. Like you're running on one leg at a time. You're cutting on one leg at a time. I mean, you'll get like the 2 foot jumps sometimes. Sometimes you're a 1 foot jumper. You hit it in stride. So I mean, you're gonna have to train. You can't rely on your dominant leg all the time.
mhm. Yeah, you got to be diverse. Exercise, variation, modification, and progressions. I like it. Uh, so, what would you say would be some pitfalls of programming that you would typically see, like when kids like have been at other places and then they come to you guys? Um, One of the things that I heard in the past was from one of the kids that just started up with you guys. Um, Basically, had been talking about like at their last gym, they basically had like the same program for like all age groups, and when they had I guess you could say like a more advanced athlete, someone who's been in the gym a little bit longer. Their training age is a lot higher. They were doing the same thing as like one of the 6th and 7th graders, and it was just really weird to me because here's this kid who's about to go to college, and they're doing the exact same stuff as
Mhm.
the 6th grader. I was like, okay, like I get it. Like when you're younger, you can do anything, and you're going to make progress if you're new to the gym. But like this person was not a novice, training age wise, like definitely more than 2 years of 2 years of I guess training to begin with. Hey, Bo.
Yeah. Someone coming up the door. Um, for like the core movements, it's all the same. Like just the intensity is higher. I mean, you can still have a 6th and 7th grade, do a bench press, and you can still have a freshman or a college senior getting ready to go to the combine. They can still do a bench press.
Mhm.
We kind of start getting into maybe the intensity and the volume, and maybe you have the accommodated resistance. They can handle maybe their power output's obviously higher, so they can handle maybe like a plyo, upper body plyo. A lot of little like younger kids just don't have the strength to do like a push up, let alone try to do like some type of upper body plyo.
Mhm.
So you kind of advance it there. Just their awareness of their body is a lot higher. So you can start maybe instead of doing like a regular kettlebell swing, we do like these single leg impulse kettlebell swings where it's a rapid eccentric on
Mhm.
1 foot hanging onto a rack and then redirecting that forward thing unilateral. I mean, a lot of 7th and 8th graders can't quite figure out how to do a proper hinge on 2 feet and do a regular kettlebell swing. So it's just kind of taking the original wheel, not necessarily like reinventing it, but like kind of figuring out how to advance it a little bit.
Mhm.
But
Okay.
you can always stick to the core stuff, and we don't get too. I mean, we're not sitting there squatting on Bosu balls, and we're not doing all that kind of stuff. It's all like ground power output and max force is a kind of our philosophy that we use all the time. So as
Mhm.
long as we can maximize those, then that's what we're going to stick with, and the variation can go from all the way across the spectrum.
Yeah. Move well, produce power.
But for the most part, I mean, we're not sitting there like our college kids are doing like these crazy, outrageous, different exercises from our youth kids. I mean, we're still hinging, we're still pressing, we're still lunging, we're still doing rotations, we're still doing all those those movements, the rows, the pushes, the pulls, so overall you can kind of see some similarities, but you kind of get down to the nitty gritty of it. I mean, there's some pretty big key differences across training age and levels and stuff like that.
Makes sense. I guess one of the examples I have for like a programming pitfall, I had a gentleman who just consistent knee pain whenever he would go to do squats. And when we got down to it, we checked his squat form. Squat form was actually pretty good. Checked the strength. Strength was actually pretty good. But then went to go look at like what his like warm up was and what his sets were before he actually went to his working sets. And he was basically just kind of going into the gym and he didn't really have a whole lot of time to work out. So what he would do is he would basically get in there and go immediately into his working sets because he had to go home and get to the kids. Um, and so what he started doing was he was going right to like 75, 80%, like right away without any type of a warm up, just putting the bar on his back and going. And you would never do
No, excellent. Heck no, dude. Heck no. I didn't do that this morning.
that. But what ended up happening was because he was just kind of going right to that load after he works a desk job. So he goes from sitting all day, having no type of like really elevated core temperature, no blood flow down into the lower body, not as intense as it probably needs to be before he's about to go putting that load on. And he goes squatting with, 75, 80% right out of the gate. And he's like, yeah, my knee just kills me. So I didn't make any changes to his squat form. His squat form actually looks beautiful. Didn't make any changes in strengthening with him over the period of 2 weeks. I mean, that's 2 weeks, you're not going to make any huge strength gains. All we did was adding basically just instead of him just kind of going right into it, we added 3 light working sets. That's all we did. Added 3 light working sets. Barbell, 25 pounds, 35 pounds, right into whatever he needed to do, whatever those loads were going to be at his 75, 80%. I can't recall off the top of my head. But what ended up happening was he started doing that. Knee pain was like that's all we had to do was actually give him more of an adequate dynamic warm up, which was literally lighter sets of what he was about to do, and knee pain was gone. All we had to do was just be smarter with his program. But it was something he found off bodybuilding.com. So I mean,
That's still a thing.
yeah, I know, right? It kind of threw me
I'm
for a
about to get me some protein, bro, and get me a free T-shirt.
it cracked me up there because I was like, oh shit, okay, yeah, like one of Chris Gethens things, like game on, we can do this. Um, so I looked through it and like, of course, like he even has in the program, like there was supposed to be like warm up sets, but he was just completely omitting that from it. So I was like,
Oh yeah.
try those, like go through the warm up sets. Like the best warm up is literally what you're about to do at a lighter load. And so he did, and it was like night and day difference. I'm like, maybe you don't need corrective exercise. Maybe it's just to be a little smarter, not put yourself through the torture chamber without even, you know, knowing what you're doing. Uh, but it was
Time
good.
is money. Time is money.
I mean, he only had about 35, 45 minutes. So like we broke it down to like he had a program that basically would have taken him like an hour and a half each time he went to go work out. So we just condensed it, took off the basically what I would call like junk volume that like he just didn't need. And there
Mm.
was like he could hit the core movements and he would hit like 1 or 2 accessories, 30, 45 minutes, done.
Mm-hmm.
Made so much better and he's been making progress and I've been really pumped. But that I guess would be like, have you had any other examples or stuff like that? Like maybe when the kids go to school and they start training with like the college coaches and they just make those little changes or ask you for critiques?
Um, a lot of it's with colleges. We kind of stick to similar. I mean, they'll come home with their workout sheets.
Hmm.
We really follow them because they're all generic kind of stuff. But we'll take a look, and there's some on there they don't know how to do or they're confused about. We'll go over it, make sure that they know how to do it, they feel comfortable doing it, and then we'll kind of just go to our own style workouts, especially like incoming freshmen like that haven't reported yet. So their coach sends them this off-season workout that they don't know anything about the current athlete's body, like what's best for their situation, and it's all just bare minimum generic as low as you can go. It's like, all right, you do cleans, so we'll go over your cleans, make sure that your technique's good for when you get there. But for the most part, like we know your body better than the strength coach does right now. We're probably going to know your body better than what your strength coach does when you get there. So we're just going to stick with what we know is best for you. And then when you get to college, if you got some of these like track, for instance, if he starts feeling a little bit off, it's all right. Go back to the stuff we do in the summertime. Make sure your hamstrings are strong. Make sure you're groin's strong. Things like that, and then he kind of gets back on track. So we definitely have like exercises and programs that are based off of the athlete's individual needs.
Mhm.
If you got bad hip hamstrings, which I'll get into in a minute, because I've been the last like month with track picking up and things like that. It's like
Mhm.
we're need to get the hamstring stronger, but there's training your hamstring at knee flexion isn't going to do it when you're a sprinter. Like you're hitting the ground with extension through the hip, and that's where the most hamstrings are pulled is whenever you're coming into your flight phase into your toe off, and then you're going into your stance phase, and that rapid eccentric or the hamstring pull with the hip extension is when you're going to pop your hamstring, and all of a sudden we're going to try to do rehab just straight up doing hamstring curls.
Mhm.
That's not gonna. That's why you keep reoccurring. You keep popping your hamstring, and you keep coming to me thinking that I can just like magically fix this in a week. And it's like no, or freaking your running volume goes from 0 to 5,000 meters, and your shins hurt. I mean, sometimes common sense has got to kick in here.
Yeah.
But like no, the hamstrings, and then like okay, the runners. So we're just gonna do lower body, and we're gonna work on hamstrings, hip flexors, and glutes. And it's like okay, well now you wonder why you got all these pulled groins because you use your groin. It's pretty big sprint muscle. You can't just figure out the three biggest ones. You got your ankles and your calves produce 12% of your sprint mechanics. Your upper body caves, your lower body mechanics are going to cave. So it's definitely more than just the three major muscle groups. So
Yeah, no, I know. Actually, it kind of freaked me out the other day. One of my kids was telling me that baseball tryouts was that day, and I was like, wait a minute, we are about to get into all that stuff. We're about to
yeah,
get baseball. I was like, holy crap, basketball just finished up or is about to finish up. I was like, oh my God, this is freaking me out. Um, but yeah, no. I think that one of the things I've loved the most about the springtime and how things have kind of developed over the last few years is I like having my hand in kids when they've had a previous history of like shoulder injury, elbow injury, with like my throwers, for example. And I like having them on a throwing program before the season's even started, before they've even gotten like back into like the swing of like tryouts and all that things. Because if you haven't even touched the baseball and you have tryouts coming up, and you're all of a sudden going to go from like zero volume count on throws, and you're going to go out there and think you're going to go start throwing, 35, 50 times in a day, wherever you have practice, ain't going to happen. Ain't going to feel very good. Track runners, sprinters, especially, sometimes even throwers, shot put, discus, they go from a whole lot of nothing to a whole lot of volume all at once. And man, I mean, you almost need like I mean, first track meets when? Do you know?
March 29th, 23rd, kind of varies around the last week of March. Take about a month and a half, month and a week.
I used to love basing it off the Versailles invite.
Yeah, some of them got like one right before that now.
Seriously? 'Cause I know
Yeah,
Versailles is always in like April, I think.
like April, like the first week of April is like always the sales meet, and then there's some of them pick up like one before.
Let's see.
And that swimmer I just talked about, she just made finals in state, setting a new PR. Let's go.
That's awesome. Heck yeah. Oh yeah, first one's like usually in the very beginning of March
Yeah, and I actually
or end of March.
getting back into the school realm. I had my first workout. The softball team just started with me this week, and like all right, we got alternating bench press, we got we're supersetting it with skater squats. Trying to maximize our time in there. And the first thing they do is they go grab the 10-pound dumbbells. It's like so I got to sit there and give them the talk. It's like you're about to go ask your body to produce maximum power outputs repeatedly over and over again right off the rip.
Mhm.
And I get that some of you guys don't want to be here, but like if you want to last the whole season healthy, get your body prepared. I mean, we're already. I mean, if you're just now starting out and season starts in 3 weeks, we're already behind. So let's try to just forget the part where we're just going through the motions, and let's try to prepare our body the best way we can. So you're gonna have to work on maybe grabbing 20 25s. Some of you guys are
Hey,
can do that, no problem. And it's like in 3 4 weeks when your arm's tired and gassed and it can't produce the power that you want it to, and it's like, okay, well, let's go back to what we talked about before. You didn't properly prepare your body. I know it's not. It's a secondary thing to your sport, but it's required to help maintain a healthy season.
mhm,
Just
yeah,
because you're not actually throwing a ball, you're still moving things at high velocities. You're still moving things at high forces and working on all the rotator cuffs and all the scap rows and all that kind of stuff that helps surround those muscles, help maintain and produce the velocity that you're wanting to for a long duration of time.
yeah.
So
And like we always talk about, what do we love the most? In-season weightlifting.
yeah, it's hard
Maintain.
to start in season when you never worked out in the off season though. So that's the challenging part I'm getting back into at the schools. A lot
Yeah.
of them just say off season is no season for them, and it's when preseason starts, that's when you start doing stuff, and it's like now you know why your body hurts.
Like pulling teeth, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, no, I know one of the big things, one of the things that I'm trying to drill into some of these kids' heads right now is that using bands as arm care or as like I mean, don't get me wrong, it can be a nice entry point if you're having a lot of irritation. Bands for like shoulder and arm care can be a nice entry point. But if you are trying to get the arm strong and you think that the best corrective exercise for strengthening the external rotators, let alone, I don't even know if I'd call it corrective exercise at that point, it's just strengthening, like strengthening and stabilization. You actually need to start putting weights in the hands and starting to develop stability and resilience. Because when you have a kid that's throwing 65, 80 miles per hour, I mean, how many times in a game you really think that that little red TheraBand is going to be enough for you to start developing strength, let alone maintaining a drawback, and then also having to slow the arm down after release? Like, it ain't gonna happen. Ain't gonna happen. Um,
oh, my favorite new thing is, it's not really new, it's been around forever, but it's coming back. It got away from a while, but now it's like coming back, and it's doing the internal external rotations with dumbbells. And it's like, how does gravity work here? What's the gravity pulls you down, and you're just warming up your bicep, bro. Like, you're not doing anything for your shoulders.
put it gravity resistant. If anything, bring those elbows out.
Yeah, it's like,
Get
no.
out there.
Sitting here crank, I'm like, what you got going on here, bro?
Just
Get my
trying to
shoulders
move
warmed
that
up.
bicep, you know?
I haven't seen that in a long time, and then like I've seen it probably 4 times in the last week.
And TikTokers are making him famous again, maybe. I don't know.
Got a good chance.
Couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you. No, I mean, I don't know. Time just seems to be flying by right now, man. I mean, springtime's right around the corner. We got to start picking a few baseball games to go to, and a few track meets to go to.
Oh, I'm always ready to go for those.
I got a few in mind. I got a few in mind. I got a few kids I got to go watch this too. I'm actually pretty excited. Gonna be all over Dayton, all over from Minster all the way down probably to Westchester right now. Gonna be all over. We're not gonna have
Yeah,
any.
your clientele just expanded a lot.
Yes, it did. In a good way. In a good way. Oh man, it's gonna be crazy. No, it'll be good. Um, anything else you wanna talk about though with corrective exercises and programming? I feel like we pretty did a pretty good job of discussing that part. I just feel like we could break that down even more if we would really want to.
I
Um,
went on my rants.
hmm?
That I went on my rants.
I think sometimes one of the things that maybe isn't so apparent with like, programming faults is it might not even be a fault. Maybe it's just something that happens during the season or happens repeatedly with multiple people during the season. And then all of a sudden you go back and look at it and maybe see maybe where something was underutilized, or maybe like for example, I'll go back to Coach Joey G. When like they started incorporating acceleration and deceleration mechanics and drills in season, and also monitoring the monitoring the volume before and during and after season, kind of adjusting as they needed to, so that they can keep it in year round. Um, because they started having all these ankle injuries, and I think what was it, ankle and ACL injuries.
Mhm.
And so, like, sometimes you don't know what you don't know until after the fact and after the season. So going back in, analyzing your programming and making those adjustments. So not necessarily that it's a programming fault initially. It's just something you can go back and do better later. And then you can basically, it's the fun of programming. You get to do experiments without really having like a full on like research trial, right? It's you do the programming, you go through it, and then you get to kind of see, okay, I made these adjustments to the program for this year. What is our injury report for the final end of the season? And they had success. So it's like things like that as a strength coach is also good to see, and what you need to use with your numbers. Um, Not just on like the PRs and testings and things of that nature, but how did they hold up throughout the season? What was the resilience of your team? Um, that's half the fun. I love that. I love numbers. So it's fun. But trying to think, what do you want to talk about next time?
I'll do some thinking on that one.
Yeah, we could go back more into the in-season weightlifting talk.
Yeah.
Communication could be a fun one to talk about.
Yeah.
In-season communication between the sports medicine team. I have someone in mind we might bring on. We could have fun with that.
That and the actual coaches and
Coaches, athletic trainer, strength conditioning coach, parents, the athlete, physical therapist if they're there. There's a whole hodgepodge of people. The physician, if they're involved, the orthopedist, um, sports med doc. It all depends. That could be a fun one. I'll marinate on that one. I think that might be a fun one. But no, we hope you guys enjoyed. The best of the best of Lou and Brandon. But we will see you guys in the next episode.